Okay, so this is a little bit less than we expected, but that's all right because we can spread our influence to you three, and hopefully more will join us as we go. I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see that all right? Okay, so before we start, I'm gonna talk a little bit about our club. So our club, as you can see, is called Happy Hour, and we focus on mental health among youth. And basically, we have two sections. We have a section for kids and a section for parents. And the section for parents is we will create presentations that are created by like youth, and this one was just created by me and Iris. But it's basically we will pick a topic, and as you can see, this time is comparing, and we will talk about it, and we'll talk about why, like maybe why we wish parents could change the way they do something, or how we feel about something, or like a combination of both, or just something that bothers us that affects our mental health a lot that we wish parents could be a little bit more understanding about or could support us a little bit more. So that's kind of what these presentations and these meetings are going to be. And later, for the reason why I'm recording this is because we will post on YouTube. So if you have to leave halfway through, or you know someone that didn't get to come to our meeting and they wanted to come, we will send out the link later and you guys can watch it from there too.
Okay, so for today's agenda, we have three subtopics, which are in order comparing between a child and parent, comparing between siblings, and comparing between your child and another child. And in the end, we'll have a short Q&A.
And as we said earlier, our first subtopic is when you compare your child to yourself.
Yeah, so our main theme, like the thing that we're emphasizing the most, is that we are different. We are all different. We are not you, who is the parent. Even though our genetics are similar, we are not your carbon copy. So we can't be exactly like you. In addition, we want different things. We have different opinions. We have different goals. We have different feelings through different things. And we're not going to want exactly what you're going to want. And we live in different eras and different generations and in different environments. And as a result, we have different struggles and different ways of growth. So this entails that we might not completely understand you and you might not completely understand us. And this is why communication is a key factor. And we did make a presentation about communication uh, in the past, but it was in Chinese. So we will have that presentation again, but have it in English so you guys can all understand. And finally, our hard work matters, and we should all celebrate what we as youth have done. We put work into what we accomplish to get to a certain level. And sometimes I see parents saying, for example, I aced a German test, language, and sometimes a parent might go, "Oh my gosh, you're good at language just like me." And to me, that feels like you're saying it's my credit because um, I'm your parent and you have my genetics. But it's really our hard work.
Yeah, so a point that Iris mentioned earlier about the presentation on communication. So that was actually the first topic that we did. And most likely next meeting, we are going to represent that one, except the entire presentation is going to be in English. So that way a greater audience can understand it. And so we have examples for everything that we talked about on the last slide. So the first example is I feel like most parents have done this before. And it's like, oh, when I was your age, I was doing this, this, this. And it almost feels like here, I'll give a more specific example. Like one thing I definitely know that like my dad has said was like, "Oh, when I was your age, like I could run a 200-meter dash." Like I don't even remember how fast he said it, but he said that he could run it like that fast. And then it made me feel like, "Oh, well, I like I'm like your age too, and like I why can't I run that fast? Like am I a failure because I can't be like you because I can't be as good as you?" But it also has to do with like if my dad could like run a 200-meter dash and he could get first place and like maybe I'll be over here getting like fourth place, it also has to do with competitiveness has like gone up and like we grow up in different time periods and different like nowadays kids are training super hard to run well, and back in my dad's day kids weren't doing that. And because we grew up in such different environments, it's like we don't entirely understand what each other is like going through, the struggles each other are facing. So when you make that comparison and you make it seem like what we're going through is like super easy because you've done it before and you did it super well and you excelled and it wasn't hard for you, it makes us feel like we've failed as like a person and that we're just not good enough. And then our second example is like what Iris said before, but a more specific example is it's actually the example kind of that Iris made, but I I have like said to my mom before, like, oh yeah, my Spanish teacher was telling me that I had really good Spanish pronunciation and that my pronunciation was really close to authentic and really close to a native speaker. And then my mom responded with, "Oh, do you want to know why? It's because I'm good at languages too." And I'm sure my mom's intention wasn't to like discredit my hard work or anything, but when she said that, it made me feel as if the only reason why I'm anything, why I'm good at all, is just because I have her genetics. And without her, I would just be a nobody and I wouldn't be good at Spanish. And even though I worked really hard on my pronunciation and I tried really hard to get good at like the grammar and everything, it's just it would be nothing if I didn't have my mom's genes. And yeah, that comparison just was very invalidating for everything I worked hard for. And then our last example is actually the opposite of what I said before. Kind of, it's like instead of being, oh, you're good at this because you're like me, it's like, I'm good at this, why aren't you? And I have a friend, and she is not very good at math. She, like, her math is her weakest subject, but her dad is an engineer and he's really good at math. And she'll tell me about it. And she'll feel really bad about being bad at math because her dad will tell her, like, oh, I'm an engineer. Why aren't you good at math too? Like, I excel at math, you should too. And then she will feel like, well, one thing, she will feel like a failure because she's not like her dad. And she'll also feel really left out because her dad is her family and she should be like her family, but she's not good at math while her dad is. And it's just very, it makes her feel really awful. And that's just another reason why comparing us to you just isn't something good.
Yeah, so our next subtopic is comparing between siblings.
So for this one, like as we said before, and we're probably going to repeat it like at least a billion times in this presentation, we are very different. Even though we're siblings, we are different. And even though we are both your child and we have similar genetics, we're not going to be good at the same things. And we're going to have things that we like. And it's very likely going to be different. So we're going to excel at different things. And it's just natural to be that way. So when you compare us, and maybe it's like two siblings, one likes basketball and the other one likes drawing. And if you compare them in drawing, obviously one is going to be a lot better. So because we have different passions, comparing the two of us is just going to be really hurtful to one, or maybe between multiple siblings, it's going to be just very hurtful and not constructive at all. And then all siblings, no matter how hard we try not to, like I can testify to this, Iris can too. We both have sisters, and we already compare ourselves a lot. Even though we try super, super hard not to, we all do it. And then when you compare us too, it just makes things so much worse because comparing, okay, when you get compared to your sibling, even if it's just you doing it to yourself, it hurts a lot. It hurts more than being compared to anybody else because your sibling is like your best friend, someone you grew up with, someone you love so much. But when your parents do it too, it's like because your parent is your parent, like, you love them a lot, and obviously you care about their opinion, and it just makes it hurt that much more, and just rubbing salt on the wound. And then, like I said earlier, like, siblings are gonna like different things, so if they want to do different activities, or they wanna take different classes, or they wanna make different choices, you should let them because otherwise it's going to be limiting to both of their growth. And if you try to force them to be more similar, both of them are going to have very limited self-expression and they're just going to dislike what they're doing. So for our examples, like I said before, most siblings are different. And obviously there are going to be times that siblings like the same thing. Like me and my sister, we both really like dancing, but most siblings like different things. Like I know Iris really likes sports and her sister does not at all. So when if you were gonna like compare Iris to her sister in like basketball, obviously Iris is going to be better. And then her sister will feel bad about it because she doesn't like basketball, but she's not as good as Iris at it. And then even though she doesn't even care about basketball and she doesn't even like it that much, she's going to feel bad because it's her parent, and it's just not gonna feel good, especially since, like, Iris's sister is going to care about Iris, and she's going to wanna be good like Iris, so and then another thing, like, all siblings compare themselves to one another. I can talk about this a lot if I'm going to be honest. Like, I honestly, my parents don't actually compare me to my sister all that much. Like, actually, they don't really do it at all. Most of it is actually my own thing. But my point here is that we do it to ourselves so much. Like, I know almost my entire life, I've been like, "Oh, your sister is so smart. Be like her. Oh, your sister is so good at track. Be like her. Oh, your sister is really good at long jump. Be like her. Oh, your sister did this. Be like her." And I know it's just me doing it to myself, but it hurts a lot. And then if you add like a parent doing it to you, that's just like I said earlier, like rubbing salt to the wound. And as I said, like we care a lot about y'all's opinion because you're our parent. You're the one who raised us and we love you and you're supposed to love us. So when you compare us, it almost feels like, oh, you like this sibling more. Or like, oh, you don't think I'm good enough and you'd rather just have this one as your child. And it's just really not a good feeling at all.
Yeah, and then our next example is we grow differently. For example, me and my sister, we will mature at different ages. I think I matured slightly earlier and she has yet to mature. And for the things that we do, like as Karina said, I really like sports. My sister doesn't as much. We will excel at different rates. Like, for example, if I play violin, I might improve faster, while she might be steadier and slower and more detailed. And it's just different because we're different people.
Yeah, and another thing to add on to what Ira said, how she matured faster, another thing you have to think about is like Iris is the older sibling. So it's natural for her to mature faster or maybe to have a different type of mindset than her sister does. And like I am the younger sibling, so like I can understand her little sister's point of view. Like it's just you have to take into account how different our situations are and how we're just completely different people. So you can't so when you compare us, it's almost like it's like that quote by I believe it's Gandhi, and it's like, "If you judge a fish by its ability to fly, it'll think it's dumb forever." It's kinda like that because we're so different. And, like, one of us or maybe if you have multiple children, it's like some of them might think they're dumb forever because you keep comparing them on this one thing. And then so our next point is let us do different things if we want. Because I know, like I said earlier, me and my sister both really like dance, and if they like the same thing, like, that's totally cool, like, let them do it. But I know, there are these twins in my grade, and for a really long time, their mom made both of them dance, but only one of them liked dancing, and the other one really liked to play the tuba. And the one who liked dancing obviously excelled because she was doing something she loved and she was having a lot of fun. But her sister did not like it at all and she was falling behind and she would feel really bad about it because she wanted to excel too, but she didn't actually like it. So whenever she didn't do well and like someone like pointed out and compared the two of them, she would feel really awful about it. And yeah, it's just really not a good feeling, especially it's kind of stronger between twins because everyone has labeled like the two of them as like the same thing. So it's just comparing between siblings. It's just really, really tough on the two siblings or multiple siblings. And so our last topic is comparing between other people or like other kids.
Yeah, so again, we're going to emphasize this a lot. We are all different and beautifully unique. And for these other people, you don't know who they are. Like, you might know one face of it, um, but there's going to be like five more sides of the cube. And for example, I'm taking a random example here. For example, one person, um, they play golf and they're really good at it. First of all, you don't know how long they've played, and you don't know the rest of their world. You don't know how maybe you might be better at running than them. And being good at one thing shouldn't like determine how good a person is. For example, if I compare myself, my golf skills to Tiger Woods, that's not going to be reasonable because Tiger Woods has played for a long time and he's really good at it. And second of all, and then third of all, you should focus on us instead, because sometimes when and this also ties into the next point where when you compare us, it drowns us in pressure. Because sometimes when you look at someone else um, and it sounds like they, you would rather have them as your child instead of us because you're praising them so much, you're saying how good they are. And it drowns us and like it pushes a lot of burden on our back because we love you and we care about your opinions because as Karina said before, you guys are our parents. And when you compare us to someone that's better and praise them, it seems like you think they're better and it makes us feel invalid. And we as your child already work really, really hard so we can impress you. And again, this is because you guys are our parents and we love you.
So on our examples, oh wait, Iris, this one's yours.
Yeah, so sometimes after, so this is compare me to me. So sometimes after my violin lesson, my dad will sometimes say, like, for example, why did you get that wrong? Or why did the teacher have to spend 10 minutes on that? That was really easy. Or why did you play that note wrong? Or last time you got that wrong, this time why did you get it wrong again? And all these things. And then he will like compare me to other people, some of my friends who are way better at violin than me, who excel at violin. And this makes me feel really bad because this is my dad, and again, I care what my dad thinks about me. And in this certain scenario, I think instead of my dad comparing me to all my friends, it would be better if he could compare me to me. And like for example, last lesson you I don't know, got your trill wrong. This time you got it wrong again. Maybe you can try again and improve it for next lesson. And there's just those little things that will help me instead of pull me down.
And then so this next example is, so I'm gonna talk about my mom for a second, and she doesn't actually compare me to other kids, but she'll talk about like she'll like ask me, oh, like this is this person, like what are their grades? Like what are they ranked? Like, oh, do they still do band? And she'll like talk about someone else's kid, and I'll be like, hey. I'm your kid. Like, why don't you talk about me? Like, why don't you ask me about me? And even though she's like not comparing me to someone else, it almost feels like, hey, why do you care so much about this kid? Like, do you want them to be your kid instead? Like, do you not want me as your kid? And then, so if in this situation she was actually comparing me to this kid, it would feel so much worse because they're like, she would be blatantly saying, like, oh, this kid is better than you. And it would feel really awful because it would genuinely feel like, oh, so you think this kid is better than me. Like, you would just rather have them be your kid and you don't want me to be your kid. And then, sorry, our last example is, so when you compare kids, it creates so much stress. And I actually had a friend, she's like super, super smart and she's like ranked super high and she's really good at tuba. She's in like the highest band and she's a leader in a lot of clubs. Like she's very, very like academically super amazing. And I was talking to her. I'm sorry, excuse me. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, a lot of parents like compare their kids to you because you're so good at this. And like, yeah, like you're just really, really amazing. And then she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, did you not know that? Like, we talk about it a lot. And she was like, no, because my mom actually compares me to you. And I was really surprised. I was like, me? And then she said to me, yeah, like, because you dance, and my mom always tells me that I should be more athletic like you and that I should be more sociable like you because whenever there are parties, you always like talk to the parents and you can make friends with everybody. And then she started like rambling on and on and on. And she was so stressed about it. And she was so stressed about like being more sociable and spending less time studying. And she got really, really worried about it. And I was like, oh my God, like, first of all, you don't need to stress that much because it's not like you don't know how to socialize. You do. Like, you have us, you have friends. And like, if you like studying, like, keep doing it. And then she just felt so stressed about it because her mom said to her that she wishes that she could be more like me and be more sociable. And then, so yeah, that pressure is just insane because, like, as a point we said before, like, you're our parent. So obviously we want to be like a good child to you. So when you compare us, like that stress is just insane. And so I'm really sorry, y'all. Excuse me. So this is kind of like an ad for our club. Um if your child is interested in our club, so basically in our kids section, what we do is we actually have multiple parts in our kids section too. Basically, we have like a section where kids can all come and they can like chill with us. We can talk about some stuff. We'll do like activities and sometimes we'll do like meditation and yoga or like a little bit of exercise to like get like the dopamine flowing, like just like some very healing types of like exercises. And we'll yeah, we'll just like talk about like some topics because we're all teens and we can relate to each other. And then another section that your kids can do is we are um, we are offering volunteer hours and kids can join us and create presentations like these that we're presenting right now. And it's like they can put their thoughts and ideas into it. They can present it with us if they want to. And yeah, basically it's they can create these presentations with us and we're giving out volunteer hours for that. And then oh yeah, one more thing is I am like offering myself to like talk to someone like if you need any help. And I know like I'm just a kid too, but I'm also like relatable person. I understand people and like from what I've heard, like I'm pretty good at talking to people and helping people like sort out their emotions. So if your kid is interested in that too, or if they just need someone to talk to, you can have them fill out this form and Iris should be putting in the chat, I believe. And then our second Google form is for you guys, and we are hoping you guys can give us some feedback. Yeah. And does anyone have any questions or comments or like something they'd like to say to us?
Yeah, actually, I do. Both, first of all, thank you all both very much. It's a very interesting talk. And I've been a parent of three kids, and I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, I have two daughters, and um, I constantly want to have better relationship with my kids. And right now, it seems like we're hitting some rough spots with my younger one. And so this topic is actually quite relevant. And thank you both. And I think it's a very interesting topic. And I believe there should be more people participating in this Zoom call. It's just uh, it's a pity that not not more people are joining in. But I have two questions, as a matter of fact. The first question is, like, was there any time that a comparison is a good thing? Is a kind of a motivation for any kids? I understand that you did quite of a case studies, between siblings, between you and a stranger, and between you and parents. But was there any occasions where a comparison can actually do some good? And the second question is, I know you feel a lot of a lot of situations you feel stressed, you feel pressured, and but can you go a little deeper, or does that feeling just end there, or is there any like a longer term damage as far as the relationship between the kid and their parents goes? Um, so I would like to hear a little bit of your thoughts on whether there's some more longer term bad consequences instead of just the momentary pressure and stress. I mean, it's bad, but I'm more interested in like more of a longer term thing. And having said, I asked all that those two questions. I have to admit that actually, I think this is probably very common in Chinese parents or Chinese families. I don't know about other Asian families, but I know if you think it's pretty bad here in the U.S., it's actually a lot worse in China. From where we grew up. I think is a Helen still on? We can you can she can chime in as well. I mean, it's like the parents are comparing you and the neighbors kids like all the time, and almost every conversation starts with the kids are across the street is did this and this and this and blah 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 blah. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's a whole lot worse. I think a whole lot worse in China than it's in the US. But of course, kids grow up in different environments here, and we have to be sensitive to your generation, growing up in American culture, right? Um, so anyway, I'm gonna stop here, and hopefully you guys can answer, put some shades into the two questions I just asked.
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh wait, Iris, do you want to go first?
okay, I can answer the first question. Well, first of all, thank you for coming and thank you for your comments. For the first question, you said, like, is there any times that compare is good? I believe yes. Although I think this depends on the situation. Sometimes comparing lifts you out of like a ditch, like it makes you look up at something that's higher, at something that's like better than you. And personally, for me, sometimes it will help motivate me to continue forward, and be like use that person as a inspiration to keep going higher. Yeah.
Um, yeah, like something that to answer your first question, I believe that the reason why comparing can be so harmful is because you're comparing like the result to another result, and it's like, how do I explain this? Instead of comparing like someone's, let's say, like math abilities to another kid's math abilities, like that would be harmful because it's like, oh, I'm so bad at this. And then they will start to believe, like, oh, I'm bad at this. Like, why am I like still trying? Like, oh, I'm bad at this. And they're only going to think, like, oh, I'm bad at this, or oh, I'm not as good as this person. But if I feel like a comparison that could be good is like, instead of being like, why can't you be like this person? You can say like, oh, like, look, this person is very hardworking, instead of like, oh, they're good at math. And you can say like, I think you should learn from them, instead of saying like, you should be more like them. And then for your second question, yeah, I didn't really go into like the long term effects, but really it's like because of like this comparison in your head, like you keep telling yourself, oh, I'm not as good at this. I'm not as good as like this is this person, or I'm not as good as my sibling, or I'm not as good as my parent. And you just keep thinking that and thinking that. And it's like you begin to think lesser of yourself. And between like a parent and a kid, like it could create a gap in y'all's relationship. And then between siblings, like I know for me personally, like I don't have a problem with my sister, and me and my sister are really close. And I know Iris and her sister are too. But there are a lot of siblings that will resent each other because of like constant comparisons. And yeah, it's just like a lot of the time siblings will grow apart because of that. And what you said about China, like, yeah, I know that. Like, I know the saying, like, 别人家小孩, which means like someone else's kid. And if you're like called like 别人家小孩 or like someone else's kid, it's basically saying like you're really good at something because it's always like saying like, oh, this, someone else's kid is always better. So yeah, I do know about that. And I do think that should change. And I know it's going to be hard, and especially since a lot of Asian Asian parents here are actually immigrants. So it's kind of like a small point that we talked about before. Like communication is really, really important because we don't understand each other. And even if like you're not an immigrant, we still grew up in different times. And it's just really important to like acknowledge each other, talk about why you think a certain way and talk about how you feel about certain things. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you both.
And a question I see in the chat, will you consider having a session that lets parents talk about their perspective? We actually haven't thought about that yet because a lot of the times parents will like make a comment while we present like these types of presentations, and they'll like talk about something, or they'll be like, oh, but like sometimes parents are like blah 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 blah, and then we'll like write that down, and if we have a chance we'll like talk about it to the kids and be like, hey, well, like you think this way, maybe like you should try to like talk about it with like your parent, or like think about that your parents like did blah 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 blah, or like they believe this way. So we don't actually have like a section for parents to present, but we do take y'all's ideas that you talk about in these presentations and we do bring them to the kids.
Yeah, but I think we could also consider doing something like this if there are enough people to participate in it.
Yes, and another question in the chat, in this competitive environment, do you have any suggestions about how parents can help you? I mean, it's like, I guess, how do I say this? So one thing is definitely be encouraging. And it's like you need to find the balance in between like constructive criticism and being encouraging. And oh, something very important is learning how to be constructive with your criticism, because sometimes parents will be like, oh, you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And then we're kind of like, okay, like thank you. I kind of realized that like that was totally encouraging. Like instead of like giving just like criticism, like constructive criticism, like, hey, like this was like not your strongest suit, like maybe you can work on it a little bit more, and I know you have time to work on it like at like this time, and maybe I can help you, like if you have the ability to help them, like help them, and like you can fix it by like doing this, or you can work on this. And another thing is like acknowledge their improvement. That's like something very important. And I know a lot of like Asian American households kind of forget to do this because it's always like work hard, study hard, like keep going, like push, push, push. And then acknowledging someone's improvement is very, very important because it's a reminder that their hard work isn't for nothing. So that's just like a few things that might be helpful.
Oh, yeah, and like also the things like we're suggesting, it might not help with every single child because everyone's different. Like we need to emphasize everyone is different. So you can ask your child like, how can I help you? And if it's like they don't need help, or if it's just their problem, sometimes it's in their brain and they're not like letting it out. Sometimes you can have like a talk with them, let them spill everything because it will make them feel better. But in the end, it's just that everyone's different, and so methods of helping will be different too.
Yeah, like Iris said, everyone is different. So like one thing isn't going to help everybody. That's why, like we said before, communication is really, really, really important. Like communication is, I can say, like almost the solution to everything. If you have like proper, like good flow of communication, it can solve so many issues. And yeah, like Ira said, like sometimes you can just sit down and talk to your kid and be like, hey, I've noticed that you're struggling. Like, how can I help you? How can I support you? Do you need me to do anything? Do you need like any help? And like, I know my mom does this a lot. And honestly, for me, it's very helpful. And it's also really nice to just like know that my mom always has my back and that my mom will always care about me and she'll always be there to help me.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point, Karina. Communications. Well, I have to believe that the vast majority of Chinese American families, the parents really love their kids, want their kids do well, right? That's the probably the basic truth we have to build on. Now, how do you go about that, and then go beyond that, and how to have a healthy relationship, and to to encourage or criticize your own kids in a very constructive way, so that you can always be helping them to grow in this new culture. That is a challenge, right? So I want to I want to ask you both a question about um, you know um, when you have a very healthy relationship with your parents, right? And that relationship can actually can withstand a lot of these unhappy incidences. I have to say that a lot of the parents, like at my age, we kind of like intuitively compare you our kids to other kids. Okay. And sometimes it's, I know it's not a good thing. I know it's not. I should be very careful, sensitive about it, but sometimes they just let out, in a very haphazard way. Okay. And so back to the strong relationship between kids and parents. If you have a very strong relationship there, and good trust, and mutual trust, then that can naturally all withstand, right? So I want to ask you both, like, what is it, some of the ways that you think that you can build a a a a, a trusting relationship with parents, that who are not always like overtly praising you, or encourage you, right? That's what I think a lot of the Asian families or Chinese families do not well. That parents, they don't praise their kids enough. That I think that's probably true most of the times. Now, with that said, what are the things that can be done so that we can build that more trusting relationship, and loving relationship, that can allow the kids like you guys to really grow healthily.
Um,
Like you talk about communication, right? Do you guys set up like a regular talk time with your parents, like once or twice, half an hour, block everything out, right? Leave your phone out of this conversation, put your phone down, put your electronics down, and just have real quality time with your parents. Do you guys do that?
Personally, no, we don't have like a block of time, like a specific block of time where we talk. However, like if you do that, that's very healthy and that's also a very good idea that you could do. But one thing that my family does, and it has been this way like since the day I was born, is that we always, always, always eat together. And like there's no like, oh, I'm gonna eat in my room, oh, I'm gonna eat somewhere else. No, we always eat together unless
Mhm.
there's like maybe I'll have like a dance event or like my sister will have like something else, but otherwise we will always eat together. And then like
And when you eat together, do you talk about anything, like, um, leave the electronics out, and really have like talks, quality talks.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's kind of just like, oh yeah, like today at school I did this. Oh, like, oh, there's gonna be this party on this weekend. Like, do we want to go? Oh, there's gonna be like this. Sometimes it's just very like mundane things. And yeah, sometimes we will talk about like I'll like talk about like I'm doing this and I really hate it and I'm really stressed and I feel really bad about it. And also a lot of the times it'll just be very random. Like random like times where we just talk to each other. And then another part of your question was like how can we build like a better relationship? Personally, I believe it's easiest to start like when they're young. When like cuz okay, I'm not trying to like be like snotty or anything about this, but I really believe that my parents did very very well. And my mom was very focused on I want my child to be happy and my dad was very focused on I want my child to be themselves and I don't want to limit who they are. And then so with that, my parents would let me do things, let me try things on my own. And if I went out of line, they would tell me, "Hey, like you went out of line. You can't do that. You need to like do this, or like you need to tell us before you do something." But like they would still let me go out and try things by myself instead of always telling me what to do and always telling me what to think. So I could grow as like my own person, and they would always let me do things on my own but still support me, so whenever I needed help, I knew that I had them. So I feel like because of that, I grew up very like trusting with my parents, and we have very like effective communication just because it's been that way since I was really little. And obviously like we're not little anymore, so it's kind of hard to like just immediately start that. But like I mean, first of all, like it's never too late to start. Like you can always like start whenever, and with time like it will get better. But I do think is that communication is one of the biggest things, and that you need to like both the kid and the parent need to trust each other. And we both need to understand each other's perspectives and try to change on both ends to be better like for each other. Like maybe like for on like the kids side, like maybe we need to learn to when we're going out somewhere, we need to tell you where we are and when we're going to come back. And on the parents end, maybe you shouldn't restrict us from going out all the time. And then on like the parents end, maybe you can learn to acknowledge our improvement more and like praise us more. And on the kids end, we can like oh I don't really wait on the kids end, it's like maybe we can be more like actually in that situation I don't really know what we would do if I'm going to be honest, but it's just like both the kid and the parent need to learn to adapt to each other and change for each other and try to be better for each other. And honestly that's done through communication, which is why we keep like emphasizing communication is super important. And Iris, do you have anything?
I think this was adding on to the very first question you asked, which was like how to improve your relationship. There are a few points that I have, and I think Karina told me this, and it's been scientifically proven. But like both these two things. So first is like arguing, like being able to argue, like being able to release your feelings, and your parents being able to um, accept it, and them being able to argue with you, of course not like violently, but like with your voice, like being able to express even if you know that the other person won't exactly agree. And then like the second thing is being positive. Like be positive about what you say. Like my golf coach told me, like don't say don't, or else your kid's gonna do what you don't want them to do. And but then there's like also that positiveness, which is like lying. And for example, like if I'm like really bad at golf and you say you're the best golfer, you could get like, I don't know, first place in the Olympics. I don't know. I don't even think golf is an Olympics, but whatever. Um, but like it's being truthful with what you say, but at the same time positive, because like if you do like are positive, but it's a lie, it will make us feel like you're masking us with something else that you want. So those are just 2 points I have. There's definitely a lot more.
Yeah, to add on to what Iris said, the first thing, actually what I said to Iris was like it's scientifically proven that if a kid can argue comfortably with like their parents, that is like the healthiest kind of relationship because they're not afraid of like having a consequence, or they're not afraid of like they like have enough trust that their parent will still love them and they will have like a healthy argument and like a problem will be resolved. And yeah, so like as we said, communication is super important. And then the second thing that Iris said is you kind of just have to find like a balance. Like, yes, be encouraging and be like, hey, like that was like so much better than before, but you still have to be honest about it. Like, you can't tell us that like we're super amazing when we're not. But you do need to acknowledge that like maybe like we're getting better, or like we're working really hard, or and like when you do give criticism, please be constructive. Don't just tell us we're bad. Cause like when we're bad, we know it too. And when you tell us that too, it's like, okay, I really didn't need that. So yeah, kind of just like the balance between encouragement and constructive criticism, and learning how to be constructive with your criticism. Are there any other questions or comments or anything?
No, actually, thank you both. Thank you very much. This is very helpful. And actually, I hope actually I joined more of these sessions. And so next time when parents are allowed to join your sessions, I definitely would like to be part of that. And also, if you are thinking about having a session of like asking the parents to talk about their perspectives, I definitely can share some of my perspectives. And that's my daughter calling, and I really need to go get her, actually get the dog. Okay, so thank you very much, and a good job.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
All right,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Are there any other parents who have any questions or comments, or just something else to add, or their thoughts that they want to share and want us to tell the kids?
Yeah, feel free to say anything. We're open to anything.
Yeah, you can unmute, like type it in the chat.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions, thank you guys for coming. Thank you so much for taking your time out and like listening to our thoughts. And most of all, like thank you for caring, because some parents like won't even acknowledge that maybe they have improvement points. So just it really means a lot to us to like for y'all to listen and come here. And if you guys want to contact us or have any questions, these are our discords and our emails. And yeah, the Google Forms that Iris put in the chat before, please like let your kids know that like our club is a thing. And if they're interested, they can contact me or Iris. And if they're interested in doing one-on-one with me, like please like have them contact me. And also please fill out the form for feedback for us, because that would be very helpful. But yeah, just thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to us.
Thank you so much.